5 years I'd been telling myself I was done. Done with the badge. Done with other people's trouble. Done with trying to save folks who didn't want saving. My wife was in the ground. My boy back east studying law. And I'd made peace with spending the rest of my days alone in that weathered cabin, fixing fences and talking to horses. That's what I told myself anyway. But then I heard her scream. It was early morning, sun barely cracking the horizon. I was checking the irrigation ditch near my property line when that sound cut through the air. Raw, defiant, not begging, but demanding to be heard. And you know what the damnedest thing was? My first thought wasn't to help. It was to turn around, ride home, pretend I'd heard nothing. I actually started to. Got about 10 feet before my horse stopped on his own, like even he knew I was full of shit. I rode toward those screams, and what I found, well, that's where this whole mess started. Sometimes I wonder if I should have kept riding the other direction. Would have saved us both a world of hurt. But then I wouldn't have lived again, and partner, that's worth more than you might think. Stick around. This ain't a story about heroes, it's about a man who'd forgotten how to be one. And a woman who never needed saving in the first place. The Southern Pacific Railroad was tearing through Apache land like a knife through butter, and everybody knew it. When the railroad wanted something, they didn't ask nice. They hired enforcers to make problems disappear. When I crested that ridge and saw what they'd done, my blood went cold. She was tied to the railroad tracks, not loosely, they did it right. Hemp rope wound tight around her wrists and ankles, staked to the wooden ties, her body stretched along the iron rails like some kind of sick offering. 3 men sat around a campfire about 30 yards off, passing a bottle, laughing. Every so often, one would glance at her, laugh harder. She wasn't crying. That's what struck me first. Her dress, traditional Apache deerskin, torn at the shoulder, dirty and blood-stained, her wrists raw from fighting the ropes. But her eyes, Christ, her eyes were pure fire. She wasn't looking at those men. She was staring down the tracks toward the sound we could both hear growing louder. The construction train hauling timber and steel coming through in about 15 minutes. They weren't going to kill her outright. This was a lesson, a message to anyone who stood in the railroad's way. I sat there on my horse for maybe 10 seconds, running the math. 3 armed men, all bigger than me, younger than me, probably meaner than I'd been in a decade. I had my Winchester, my old Colt revolver, and the element of surprise. That train was coming, and if I rode away right then, I'd never have to know if I could have saved her. You ever have one of those moments where your whole life splits in 2 directions? One path, you stay who you've been, safe, alone, uninvolved. The other path, you become something else entirely. I rode down that slope slow and easy, like I was just a rancher out checking his land. The men didn't even look up until I was about 20 yards out. "Morning, fellas," I called out, keeping my voice friendly. "That railroad track runs through my property." The biggest one, shaggy beard, gut hanging over his belt, finally looked up, eyes red from whiskey and lack of sleep. "Old man," he slurred, "you best keep riding. This ain't your concern." I let my jacket fall open just enough to show the U.S. Marshal badge I still kept pinned to my vest. Hadn't worn it in 5 years, but I'd never quite been able to throw it away. Actually, I think it is the big one sobered up real quick. So did his friends. "You're retired," one said, standing up. "That badge don't mean nothing out here." "Maybe not," I agreed, pulling my Winchester from its scabbard real slow. "But this does." The train whistle screamed in the distance, 10 minutes, maybe less. "Here's how this goes. You boys ride out now. I don't report this to your bosses at the railroad. They might not appreciate knowing their hired help is out here playing judge and executioner on their own time." The second man, skinnier, younger, went for his gun. Stupid move. I put a bullet through his thigh before he cleared leather. He went down screaming, and suddenly the other 2 were looking at me like I might actually be a problem. "Next one won't be in the leg," I said. "Now get your friend and get the hell off my land." They grabbed the wounded man, practically threw him over a horse, and 3 seconds later, they were gone. Dust cloud trailing behind them, but I could hear them shouting, arguing. They'd be back with more men. I jumped off my horse and ran to the tracks. The train was close now. I could feel it through the ground, that low rumble that gets into your bones. My knife was out, sawing through the ropes on her wrists, and she was looking at me like I might be just another kind of threat. "Easy," I said. The rope parted. I moved to her ankles. She didn't say a word, just watched me with those dark, unreadable eyes. The train whistle blew again. 5 minutes, maybe less. Last rope came free. I reached down to help her up, and she punched me right in the jaw. Hard enough to make my ears ring. I staggered back, hands up. Okay, I get it. Don't touch me," she said in perfect English, clear as a church bell. "I didn't ask for your help, white man." "Fair enough," I said, spitting blood. "But unless you want to argue about it while that train runs us both down, I suggest we move." She looked at the oncoming train, then back at me. Logic won out over pride. She got to her feet, unsteady, hurt, but standing on her own, and we both ran for the embankment. We made it maybe 20 feet before that construction train thundered past, iron wheels screaming, coal smoke choking the air. The ground shook so hard I thought my teeth might rattle loose. We just stood there in the sudden silence, both breathing hard. I held out my canteen. She looked at it like it might be poison, but thirst won that fight too. She drank deep, water running down her chin. When she handed it back, our fingers brushed. She pulled away like I'd burned her. "Why'd they do that to you?" I asked. She studied me for a long moment, deciding if I was worth the truth. Finally, she said, "I saw them poisoning the water at the reservation. They want the land for a depot. They want my people dead or gone, and they don't care which. You need to get back to the reservation. They'll come after you again." "I don't trust white men." "I'm not asking you to trust me." I said, "I'm asking you to get on the spare horse and ride, or walk 15 miles on bleeding feet. Your choice." She chose the horse, not because she trusted me, but because she was smart enough to know when to take help, even from someone she hated. We rode in silence, her on my spare mount, keeping a good 10 feet between us. And behind us, I could already hear what I knew was coming. Hoofbeats. "They're going to come for you," she said. It wasn't a question. "They're going to try," I replied. "My homestead's closer than the reservation. We'll make a stand there." She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "You got a better idea?" She didn't answer. My homestead wasn't much to look at. Weathered cabin, small barn, corral with 3 horses and a temperamental mule. But it had good lines of sight, solid walls, and enough ammunition to hold off a small army, or at least that's what I told myself. As we rode up, I said, "Dismount, there's a rifle in the corner. You know how to use one?" "My father taught me," she said, for the first time mentioning family. "They killed him," she added, eyes hardening. We didn't have time for stories. I could hear those hoofbeats getting closer. She went straight to the rifle, checked the load like she'd been born with one in her hands, then positioned herself by the window. No hesitation, no fear, just cold, calculated survival instinct. I started seeing her differently then, not someone who needed protecting, but someone who'd been fighting her whole life and damn good at it. "What do I call you?" I asked, loading my own weapons. She hesitated. "Nalnish. It means the one who works." "But the mission school called me Sarah. Take your pick, white man. I'm not going to ask you to trust me." I said, "But if we're going to survive the next few hours, we need to work together." She looked at me, really looked, like she was reading something written on my soul. Whatever she saw, it must have been good enough. "I can do that," she said. "What do I call you?" she asked. "Most folks around here just call me old man these days," I replied. She almost smiled. Almost. Then we heard the voice outside. "We know she's in there, old man. Send her out. Nobody else has to bleed." I went to the window. 6 riders this time, not 3, and in front, a tall man with a face like carved granite. Professional way of sitting his horse. This wasn't some drunk railroad enforcer. This was someone who killed for a living. "She's under my protection," I called back. "You want her? You come through me, so be it." The man shouted back, "Boys, light it up." Fire arrows. Of course, I should have seen that coming. The first one hit the roof with a thunk, and within seconds I could smell smoke. Nalnish moved without being told, grabbed a blanket, soaked it in the water bucket, climbed up to the loft, beating out flames. Before I realized what she was doing, no panic, no screaming, just pure, focused action. That's when the back door exploded inward. 2 men came through. I shot the first before he cleared the threshold. The second got a shot off that went wide, hitting the wall next to my head. I fired again, and he went down. More were coming. I could hear them circling the house, testing for weak points. "Nalnish, get down here!" She dropped from the loft just as another fire arrow came through the window. The cabin was filling with smoke. We were running out of time. Then I heard a new sound, hoofbeats, but different, familiar, and a voice I hadn't heard in 2 years. "Brother, hold your fire. Friendly coming in." Jacob Reed burst through the smoke like an avenging angel, his Apache Mexican heritage written clear in his scarred face and black eyes. He kicked the door shut behind him. "Jacob, I couldn't believe it," I said. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Heard you might need help," he said, then saw Nalnish. His eyes widened. "Is that the woman they tried to kill on the tracks?" I finished. "Long story. They got a professional with them." Jacob nodded. "Man named Clayton Regulator. The railroad hired him. Special." "How many outside?" I asked. 6, but I brought a present," he said, holding up a stick of dynamite courtesy of the mining camp. The beauty of fighting alongside people who know what they're doing is you don't need to explain the plan. We just looked at each other, nodded, and got to work. Nalnish would cover the front windows. I'd take the back. Jacob would rig the barn with dynamite. Anyone trying to flank us through there was in for a surprise. "They're going to rush us at dawn," I said. "Right before first light, when we're tired and can't see well. That's when they'll come. Then we make them pay for every inch." Nalnish said, "My hands are shaking just a little, not from fear, from adrenaline, from anger, from a lifetime of being pushed and finally having a chance to push back." We worked through the night. Jacob rigged traps. Nalnish taught me how to read disturbed dirt, broken twigs, subtle signs of circling enemies. I taught her how to reload my Colt faster. Midnight, we took a break, eating cold beans and hardtack, candlelight flickering. "Why are you doing this?" Nalnish asked. "You don't know me. You could have let me die." I looked at her, maybe 25, young enough to be my daughter. Face streaked with dirt and smoke, dress torn, wrists bleeding, but eyes reminded me of everyone I'd ever failed to save. "I had a wife once," I said. "Good woman. When the fever came through town 5 years ago, she tended to anyone who needed help. Didn't matter if they could pay, didn't matter their color. She helped, and then she got sick herself. All those people she saved couldn't save her. I was wearing a badge then, thought I was making a difference. I couldn't stop disease, couldn't arrest death. So I quit. Figured if I couldn't save the one person who mattered, what was the point?" And now she asked. Now I think maybe I've been looking at it wrong. Maybe you don't save people because you can save everyone. Maybe you do it because you can save someone. And maybe that has to be enough. Nalnish was quiet. Then she said, "My people believe the dead don't want us to stop living. They want us to remember them by continuing, not by giving up." "Smart people, your folks," I said. "Smart enough to know when we're being destroyed." There was no bitterness in her voice, just truth. The railroad, the treaties, the reservations, they're killing us slowly. But some of us are fighting back. That's why I was watching them, documenting their crimes. "Someone has to bear witness," she said. "You got proof?" Jacob asked. She nodded. "Hidden near the reservation, papers, maps, bottles of poison, everything. Then that's what they really want, evidence. If that gets to the right people, the railroad's in trouble, which means they'll kill everyone in this cabin before dawn. No pressure. Despite everything, Nalnish almost smiled. We didn't sleep. We talked. Jacob told stories about the old days when he and I rode together as lawmen. I told Nalnish about my son, how proud I was that he was becoming a lawyer. Slowly, carefully, she told us about her father, an Apache scout who tried to bridge two worlds. How the railroad killed him when he wouldn't sign away land. How he taught her everything: track, survive, be strong. The world will try to break you. Don't let it break back, she said. Around 4 a.m., Jacob's head came up. They're moving. We took our positions. That deep black just before dawn, when you can't see your hand in front of your face. Clayton's voice cut through. Last chance, old man. Send her out. Come and get her. All hell broke loose. They came fast, hard, professional. Fire arrows lit the sky, most landing on the roof. I could hear Nalnish cursing in Apache as she beat out flames. The barn went up first, not from their fire, but from Jacob's dynamite. 2 men had tried to flank us through there. The explosion lit up the pre-dawn like the sun coming up early. The blast was deafening. When I looked out the window, 1 man was down, not moving. Another crawling away, legs torn. 4 left. 3 more rushed the front door. Nalnish fired, hit one in the chest. I ran to help her. Jacob was already there. Revolver barked 3 times, and when the smoke cleared, Clayton was alone, pristine coat, calm face. "You're good," he called. "Better than I expected, but you're trapped in a burning building. Here's my offer, the woman for your lives." "No deal," I shouted. I wasn't asking. Clayton shrugged. 3 shots through the window. 1 hit Nalnish in the side, spinning her down. Blood everywhere. I screamed, then fired blind, emptying my Winchester. Clayton laughed. "Old man, come out and settle this proper." I dropped the rifle, drew my Colt, kicked the door, charged. Fists, elbows, a knee to my ribs cracked something. He got on top, hands around my throat, vision tunneling. Then Nalnish appeared behind him, blood-soaked but standing, drove her knife into his back. He tried to turn, raise his gun. She stabbed again and again. By the time she was done, he was dead. She collapsed. I crawled to her, pressed on the wound. "Don't you die," I rasped. Time stopped. 3 hours felt like 3 years before Jacob returned with a doctor. Nalnish woke 2 days later, and we almost laughed when she called me a snorer. The sheriff eventually came. Clayton's papers exposed him. The railroad disavowed him. Not justice, but something. When she left for the council, she asked if I'd come, not as a lawman, as a friend. I promised I'd ride up after a month. She gripped my hand despite the wound. "Thank you." I watched them fade on the horizon. I went back inside, half-burned, blood-stained, full of bullet holes. Needed work. Hell, I needed work. But for the first time in 5 years, I had a reason to do it. Redemption isn't erasing the past. It's earning the future. I couldn't save my wife, but I could save Nalnish. Maybe help her people, or at least give them a fighting chance. When I lie down now, I don't see my wife's face twisted in fever. I see Nalnish, blood-soaked, defiant. That's worth waking up for.